Hey, I'm Carlos Lago, and up next is a free episode from my show, which airs every weekday exclusively on Motor Trend On Demand. The show's called Daily Fix, and it's about going deeper into the personalities and cars behind this brand and this website and the magazines and all that stuff. The conversations are more casual. We're a little bit more we're a little bit less rigid with everything that we do, because I want to see what happens and show you what happens when the cameras get turned off on the big high-dollar production value shows that we do here. If you like what you see, go subscribe at motortrendondemand.com for a free 30-day trial. If not, that's cool. I won't be offended at all. I'll be offended. Really be offended. Welcome to internationally famous, or universe famous?
I don't know if we'll go quite international, but certainly in the U.S., yeah.
Southern California famous Dyno engine testing shop, Westech Performance. It's Steve Brule. How you doing, man?
I'm good, man. How are you?
It's nice to finally meet you.
Yeah, we've been watching each other on the computer a little bit, I guess.
You've been watching?
Absolutely, I watch.
Oh, that's really nice.
Watch all the channels.
Thank you. We're going to take a look at what goes into actually running an engine on the Dyno. So what we want you to do is explain a lot of this stuff to me as if I have no idea what it is, and that should be pretty easy.
Well,
because I don't.
So anything I say is viable, right?
Yeah. I mean, you could lie.
Well, I won't do any of that. Basically, what we have here is a Superflow 902 dyno. Westech has been using Superflow equipment for the last 25 years. We've got a little project up here today that we're doing with Engine Masters. Basically, the way the engine dyno works is the engine itself is coupled to this absorption unit, and there's a drive shaft in here, not dissimilar to like it would be in your car with the standard transmission. We just need to couple it. And there's an absorption unit back here that's actually a water brake, is another term. Maybe the best way to explain that is very similar to like an automatic transmission torque converter. But it's computer controlled, so it will allow it to release fluid so the engine can rev up. But basically what it's doing is it's holding the engine back, and by that twisting motion of trying to hold it back, it measures torque, and that's done through what's called a load cell or strain gauge. And basically, to not overcomplicate it, it's nothing more than really an electronic rubber band. So as you compress it, it changes the voltage. And then through the magic of computers, that voltage is converted to a torque reading. And then recalculated with engine speed to a horsepower number. So that's the basics of torque and horsepower. And horsepower really is nothing more than a mathematical function of torque. Torque times RPM.
That's work.
There you go.
So I mean, to keep that rubber band thing, you're putting load under the rubber band and then measuring that load, right?
As it expands or contracts, it changes the voltage, and the voltage is then converted. So that's what's reading the torque.
And then through science and math and engineering, we get horsepower and torque. Wonderful stuff that we all know and love.
You know, back in the old days, you had a big meter that said torque, and it was loaded, and there was a strain gauge, but you actually, with no computers, there was actually, the way that servo valve works is releasing the fluid. Guys would have to do that manually. And take data points, and sometimes it took 3 or 4 guys to do a dyno test, because each guy's looking at a different meter and trying to, record something, and the operator would yell mark, and everybody'd write down their little number. Well, it's a whole lot simpler for us all now. I mean, literally, I'm not going to say that a guy could be a dyno operator in a day, but I can get somebody to actually make a run and look at the data in just probably an hour. Now, how you interpret all of that and knowing what it says is really the trick.
So what kind of tools, I mean, besides the fewer people you get to work on this these days, like what kind of tools does modern technology give you with data acquisition that makes it, improves it, makes it easier?
Well, yeah, with the data acquisition stuff, I mean, look at race cars. Show me a race car without some sort of data acquisition anymore, any successful race car anyway. And it's the whole thing with computers, I mean, like I say, thinking back, 30 or 40 years ago, all that manual stuff, and now it's all kind of done for you through wizardry of computers.
How long has this actual unit been in operation?
This particular unit, I'm going to say since 2003 or 4. And the other one next door is since 2008. We had a 901 before that. And we're actually looking at some of the more current units. As power levels go up, the requirements of the machine go up. We're seeing stuff that makes 1,500 pound-feet of torque and 2,500 horsepower now. And these units really were never designed to do that, but it's all the supercharger, procharger, turbocharger stuff. This particular dyno is capable of like 1,200 pound-feet of torque, and that's really controlled more by the size and capability of the absorption unit. The electronics are all basically the same. But the newer dyno has bigger absorption unit, more control, dual servos, that sort of thing. They're a lot of money. These things are not cheap, so we've got to take a good look at it, kind of what our customer base is. But that seems to be the trend, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, we're all seeing it on other shows where the turbocharger and the huge horsepower stuff. But it's really controlled more by that size of the absorber.
Is it strictly the size of the absorption unit?
Well, the capability of it. I mean, there's
okay.
a rotor and a stator and the shape of the vanes, and that gets pretty complicated inside. But it's kind of the difference of a really big torque converter, maybe in an Allison for lots and lots of torque in a diesel, versus the automatic torque converter in your Nissan Sentra or something that doesn't have to take nearly as much power.
Yeah.
So it's the capabilities of the dyno. They're rated at, I think, one of the newer ones is rated at 2,500 pound-feet of torque. This is rated at 1,200. Engine speeds in excess of 13,000 RPM.
That's insane.
So, yeah, it's pretty fun.
When you're simulating atmosphere in here, what are your baseline? Can you do weather? How does that work?
We don't actually simulate. What we do is correct for atmosphere.
Okay.
And there are standards that we go back to. Typically in the performance world, there's STP, which is standard temperature and pressure, and it corrects it back to a given barometric pressure and temperature and humidity. There's also an SAE correction factor, but in the performance world, it's about 4% difference. In the performance world, between SAE and STP, it's almost exactly 4%.
Wow.
But it's interesting. I mean, there's some SAE numbers, but it seems like the performance world always wants to bump everything up a little bit.
So is it 4% better?
Yeah, it's 4% better, of course.
So subtract 4% from any dyno number you see for a performance shop. Is that
Well, when we talk about these numbers, I mean, OEs will sometimes use SAE numbers, but pretty much STP is universal among the performance industry, so there really isn't a lot of confusion there. But every once in a while, you'll see that lone guy who graduated engineering school and he feels very solid about the SAE correction numbers. So
a lot of the OEs, SAE is where it's at.
Exactly.
Yeah. We should go take a look at the captain's chair and look at some of the tools there.
Sounds good.
Let's do that next. So I guess this is where it all happens, right?
Well, this is where most of the either heartbreak or
triumph, right?
Triumph.
I admire your really pro level studio lighting here. This is what makes Engine Masters look so good.
You know, I wish I had something to do with it and we're that smart, but I just stand back and let the lighting guys take care of all this stuff, and we handle some other things. During that day of kind of setup, we're normally thrashing to get the engines ready, so we've got a show we can do each day, but it's a lot of fun. They do a great job. I mean, it takes 4 guys a full day to get all this stuff set up.
That's why it looks so good.
A lot of work.
What are we looking at here?
This is the console, the operator's console. There's a lot of on-screen data. We also use a computer with Windyne software, which allows us to observe, literally hundreds of channels, some that are observed, and by that I mean actual channels when it's observed, like oil pressure. It's a real oil pressure reading. Some are calculated numbers, like brake-specific fuel consumption. There's calculated and observed channels. And it's taking data literally, like we were talking about that computer thing, it's literally taking points of data probably 100 or better times per second. I can call Superflow, I don't know the exact number. But when I look at the raw data, it's literally one dyno pull that looks like it's this long and a few RPM points is literally 20 pages of data.
Data points, right?
There's so much there you can't read it all. So basically, it's pro-filtered down into something that's
now you can basically
readable.
put any sensor you want on an engine and run into here, right?
Pretty much.
How many do you typically run? How many sensors?
You know, there's probably 60 channels that we're running now. We don't use them all every time, but we're able to do 8 oxygen sensors. Actually, 12 oxygen sensors. We can do individual cylinder for on some of the tunnel ram stuff or fuel injected stuff. We can trim cylinders with fuel and timing.
Wow.
A little older way to look at kind of cylinder temperature is EGTs, exhaust gas temperature. So we can read all those channels. We've got fuel temperature, air inlet temperature, water temperatures, oil temperatures, coolant in and out. We can read manifold pressure, boost, plenum temperature, volumetric efficiency,
right? You can read anything,
vapor pressure. We actually get down to the point where at the end of the day, when we've got a pole, we can hand someone a racer, let's say for instance, his data sheet, and it's got density altitude. So when he goes to the track and he leaves here, this is the tune-up he had at 1,200 feet. When he gets to the track, he can make adjustments accordingly.
That's what you need to have if you're doing this stuff at a professional level.
It's all
right?
about data now. I mean, it really is. And it's not that you can't get there without data. It's just going to take you 10 times as long.
Exactly.
I mean, what I can see here in 2 or 3 polls could take a guy 6 months in his race car without data.
Yeah. Now on this screen here, what are you monitoring when you make a pass? Or is it pretty much on here?
Well, it's actually both. Some of it's redundant, but basically what I'm looking at generally here is air-fuel ratio. I want to make sure that and particularly when we start, I'm more focused on certain things. And that's why air-fuel ratio and oil pressure are very close together, so I can keep a scanning eye on those two. Water temperature, once you start to pull, if it's okay there, you're not going to hurt anything in the next 4 or 5 or 6 seconds that we make a run. Even if something like the water pump stopped running, we're not going to hurt the engine. So I'm really concerned about stuff that's going to damage it. And that's the air-fuel ratio typically being too lean or loss of oil pressure, something like that. The other thing that I take a real good look at when I'm rolling into the throttle, I'm looking at the roll-in torque number.
Okay.
Because if an engine's starting to fail, it goes down.
Yeah.
And if you roll in again and it's down, you got a problem.
You got a problem. Yeah,
because if it drops 20 pound-feet of torque, there's got to be a reason.
There's something going wrong.
And generally it's not good if we haven't changed the tune-up. A rocker arm can get loose or come off, or there's just a number of things. But that's when you stop and you go check that thing out there so we don't break anything.
See what's causing that.
I mean, I really, honestly, I can count how many true failures we've had probably in 20 years on a little over one hand. And they were catastrophic failures. It's when something actually broke in the motor and, exited the oil pan.
I imagine the glass right here is pretty thick, right?
It's double pane, and it's also got some steel wire in it. I do want to protect myself, and I don't want to have to duck. But I have seen shops where a guy's standing right in front of the motor with no protection, and that's not me.
That's really scary.
No, we've got this all set up. Originally, Harold Bettis, who was with Superflow at the time, helped us kind of with some of the design of the room. One of the unique things about our room, well, besides being able to film in it, that was a consideration when it was originally built, was the airflow in the room. We can actually run open headers.
Oh, really?
And we've done A/B testing, carbon monoxide testing, and we can run gasoline motors up to about 1,500 horsepower with no contamination issues in the room.
Wow.
We've even run Zoomy headers in the cell on the dyno. Now, you never see that. Nobody's put Zoomy headers on the dyno. But
that has to be pretty tremendous.
And we do that because originally we were thinking that we wanted to be able to test full exhaust systems. And maybe you saw that episode of Engine Masters where we had all the mufflers. You can't do that in a regular dyno cell. So that's why these were designed as large as they are.
Really
but
cool.
We've got a ton of airflow through there. Air changes in that room 17, 18 times a minute.
Wow.
It changes the air in the room 100%. So it keeps it very clean in there. Our data is very repeatable. I mean, I can repeat within 1 or 2 horsepower pretty easily. It's a matter of just monitoring.
Think about having to maintain all that stuff in a dyno, but it's super important, especially if you're trying to make repeatable test results.
Yeah, I mean, what's the point in having all this data if it's wrong?
Exactly.
I mean, so, we some of this new equipment, again, with the computer stuff, and even with the earlier versions of Superflow, it would sometimes take you half a day to calibrate the dyno. I can go hang weights on this thing and completely calibrate the torque readings and stuff and go through all that on the dyno, or even just check it in about 5 to 10 minutes.
That's really cool.
So it's just made everything easier. I'd like to say that I sit here all day long, but I don't. Out there with the heads and doing all that stuff too, which is kind of my real roots were building engines. Dyno testing kind of followed along from that, but
it's a natural outlet for it, right?
Yeah, you got to be able to know what you did. So,
lastly, does the throttle right there, does that just feel good? Is that a good sensation?
I love it. We've had opportunities to get an X console, which is this console where it says start and you push this big button and it takes over the throttle. There's more to the throttle than that for me. I hear things, I feel things through this manual throttle that you don't have with an X console. So for me, honestly, this is like a stethoscope to the motor. If there's a tick or a knock or something, I can hear it and feel it right here. So to me, I never want to change from the manual throttle.
Is that just how is that like mechanically? Is that damped or is that? Okay. Oh wow. Okay. So there's actually some force.
It's a Morse cable.
That
runs out to the cell.
Oh, so it's an actual cable.
Yeah, it's an actual cable.
Really?
So it's connected, to the fuel injection of the carburetor. So like I say, it's truly a stethoscope.
It's an actual throttle.
It's a long-range stethoscope, and I can hear a little tick there and go, wait a minute, we might have a loose rocker arm. Let's go out and take a look again.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it's really with the manual throttle, you're just kind of more part of it instead of just punching the button and standing back. I like it. It's just got better control for me.
Mechanical levers are always way better than buttons.
Just
for the satisfaction
completely
of it, right?
Off the subject, but there's a few things with the new cars that make me crazy that I really think still need to be connected mechanically, and one being the brakes, the throttle, and the steering.
Yes.
There's a couple of those, and they're getting away from that. It scares me to death.
It's really weird, It's strange learning stuff.
But that's a whole other deal. So.
Well, thank you for taking the time to walk us through that.
I loved it, man. I enjoyed it very much.
Hey, appreciate it. And thank you guys for watching. If you have any questions, email us dailyfix@motortrend.com, and we'll see you on the next episode. Here's what you missed last week on Daily Fix, exclusively on Motor Trend On Demand. What was my favorite and least favorite episodes this year? That would definitely be the shenanigans at Best Driver's Car. We're going to take a look at what goes into actually running an engine on the dyno.
Have you ever heard of Carlos the Jackal?
I have, quite a bit.
He was like one of the most famous terrorists in the world.
I'm not saying I'm not him. I'm Carlos Lago, and if you didn't watch last week's Daily Fix, you should do that now. It's exclusive on Motor Trend.